What exactly is the story behind Get Born Again and Died? Because I know that they started working with Dave Jordan, and then things didn't work out, and so they started working with you. Like, how exactly did that happen?
Um, I think it was Jerry that wanted to work with Dave again, to see if the magic came back from Dirt. And Dave just disrespected Layne completely.
Hmm.
As far as Layne told me, and he said that he didn't want to work with Dave anymore. That I was the guy. I was his go-to guy. And so they got into a little tiff. Dave and Layne did in the studio. Um, I don't remember exactly the situation, but they got into a little bit of a tiff, and the next thing I knew, I was getting a call and say, "Hey, man, can you work with us here in the studio in LA?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, let's go." So I didn't really bother to get into the drama of it too much. I just wanted to get, and we ended up going up to Seattle at Bob Robert Lang Studios
Hmm.
and finishing those two songs up there.
Interesting. And so, did any of the recordings from the earlier sessions in August with Dave, did they work over into what you did in October, or was it a completely fresh start with you in October of '98?
It was, I think, if I remember correctly, all of the instrumental type stuff made it.
Hmm.
And it was just the vocals going back and forth between Jerry and Layne, and then I would rearrange things in Pro Tools. And so I think all the recordings, but I don't really remember. So I could have tracked the whole thing over again, but I don't remember doing that. So I don't know.
Hey, no worries. So just musically, what did you think of the songs "Get Born Again" and "Died"?
Ooh, personally, I didn't think that they lived up to past
Hmm.
songs. Um, and I was having struggles, between Layne and Jerry, just, kind of where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? And what is the outcome? What do how do you see this song? And I turned to the other man and say, how do you see this song? And there was a completely different vision for it.
Hmm.
So I kind of got lost in the middle of it all, in the jumble of it. And I thought we had a lot better.
Hmm. At the time, do you know if there was any other Alice in Chains material they were working on, or was it only these two songs that they had ready more or less to record?
As far as I remember, it was just these two.
Hmm.
And that was it for the moment. And there was plans to do more, but
Hmm.
obviously they never came to fruition.
Yeah. To me, what's interesting about Get Born Again, it it to me it sounds like it's kind of new metal influence, like the times kind of influenced the sound of the song. Did you get that vibe at all, or am I just living on a different planet?
You're on a different planet. No, just kidding. I think I don't know. Like I said, I kind of got lost in the jumble of
Mhm.
everything, because one guy was asking me to do one thing and the other guy would ask me to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And so, when you're in a session with that man, and the other one doesn't come to the studio for that session, they can't really, communicate. So they have to communicate through my fingers basically. And
Mm.
okay, boom, 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 change it all around in Pro Tools. Okay. And then, Layne would sing, and then Jerry would come in the next day and go, no, that's all wrong. And I changed it all around again. He'd re-sing it, and then Elaine would come in and, no, that's not right again. And so, you can tell immediately that it's just like a back and forth type of thing. I can anyway.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that as a producer? Because your job, you're supposed to be the music man, but then you're also kind of managing to an extent. Like, are you were you expecting that, or was that kind of a surprise to you when that happened?
Um, no, it wasn't a surprise. Because I know, I had known each gentleman very well at that time. So, it was a matter of just trying to solve their creative differences. So that's, as a producer, that's more my job than to get into in between somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get in between. That's not my argument. I'd like to just get your vision as the artist, out through the song,
Hmm.
and then ostensibly have two separate songs at that point.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. How did you guys come to the conclusion of what it was going to actually sound like then, those two songs, given it was like the different perspectives?
I don't remember how we concluded, but eventually, I'm sure somebody just said, "Oh, good enough," you know, and I went to mixed it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Was there any indication during the Get Born Again and Died session that like this was going to be the final session? Like, did you get that vibe, or were you hoping maybe that they would still be able to pull through afterwards?
That's a hard question, Daniel. You know, I always have hope for my artists, but being a bit intuitive, I kind of saw the writing on the wall.
Hmm.
But I never say that out loud. I never, like in that situation, I always push forward with hope. And that we can keep going and keep having, these things that were so gratifying to us, especially artistically, just keep happening because, it was a wonderful thing especially when it was red hot.
Hmm.
Right. So, when you can do no wrong like that, it's like a race car driver winning every race. It's pretty soon they don't even try anymore, but
Mm.
there's still that gratification of winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when, this band went through all of that and they didn't really have to try anymore,
Hmm.
that like stuff just fell out and it was, perceived as fantastic and amazing. That was cool, but it was also a lot of hard work
Yeah.
to get to that point. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
as far as those two songs are concerned, it's I don't know, it's a hard thing for me to speak about, because I had feelings, you know.
I hear you. On that note, were you surprised at all when Layne did the Pink Floyd cover with Class of '99, like a year later, than Another Brick in the Wall?
No,
Hmm.
no, I knew that was coming.
Oh, really? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I had foreshadow on that one,
Oh, cool.
so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I thought. I mean, it's kind of one of those tracks a lot of people don't even know he did. It's a cool one too. You know what I mean? So
Right, right,
yeah.
right,
So I mean, obviously that song came out I think in 1999, the Class of '99 song. Um, a
right.
couple years later, Layne passes. Were you, if I may ask, were you surprised by the news when you heard it? Like, was it kind of expected, or did it kind of throw you off guard?
Um, well, I was on my way to Seattle,
Hmm.
um, with my then wife, and I was going to Seattle to record Layne actually,
Really?
when we got the phone call, because I was working on a record with a band called Taproot, and we had written a song that Layne wanted to sing on, and the band wanted him to sing on. And so I was on my way up there, when Susan called and gave me the bad news. And, I said, well, what do we do now? And she said, well, just keep on coming up here because we're going to have a little candlelight vigil tonight. So we just kept on coming up there
Wow.
and got up there, and things were very sad, you know, and it was just, a really, really bad experience. I shouldn't say bad experience. It was a very sad experience.
Yeah. So in terms of that last song you were gonna work with on him with, like, was it one song or was it a whole record you were gonna work on with him with Taproot?
Oh no, that was just one song that I was working on I think it was the Welcome record with Taproot,
Hmm.
and Steven had written a song, for and about Layne,
Wow.
um, and then he wondered if he could sing on it, and so I called him up, and he said, "Well, sure, man, send me a demo. If I like it, then let's do this." And he called
Interesting.
me up. Well, I called him, about a week later and said, "Hey, did you get that?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I got it. I really like it. Let's set up a date, and I'll, send me some lyrics, and we'll go in the studio." And that was the date. Like I
No
said, I was on
way.
my way up
Really?
there,
Yeah.
and so, when they found him, and so I was on my way up there already, and we were going to go into the studio that weekend
Wow.
and complete that song for Taproot, but that never happened.
So that's really interesting for a variety of reasons. One of them being is, from what I understand, Layne became essentially like he cut everybody out of his life at that point, more or less. Like he wouldn't answer the door, he wouldn't answer most phone calls, but he took your phone call. That's really interesting to hear.
Yes,
So,
sir.
so you guys maintain a good
Yes, sir.
relationship all the way through.
Yes. He and I had a fairly close relationship. Layne didn't like to be judged at all.
Hmm.
So he just wanted to be the person that he wanted to be. And he from what he told me, he didn't like the fame
Hmm.
that came along with being a multi-platinum selling Grammy nominated artist.
Hmm.
And so I think that kind of put him in a funk the whole time.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it was, he was just a very private, genuine human.
Hmm.
And he and I got along wonderfully. And I'm probably one of the last people that ever spoke to him. I
Wow.
can't be sure of that, obviously, but
Yeah.
we had that phone call about 2 weeks before they found him. Just getting plane tickets and booking studios and stuff like that. And that was that.
Wow. So I'm going to paraphrase something here. I don't. This isn't the exact quote, but Sean Kinney once said after Layne's death that Layne basically told him he was going to die, like that he had made up his mind. This is basically what's going to happen. So it's interesting to hear from you that he still wanted to record, though. So it looked like he still had somewhat of a lust for life. He still kind of wanted to move forward. Would it be fair to say he still wanted to live, so to speak?
I can't really answer that question. I don't
Mm,
know. I don't know. I mean, you know, he and I did have some very in-depth conversations about things like that. But
mm,
when you are a little bit not in your right mind, they'll say, then things become a little bit convoluted.
yeah.
And so, I didn't really. It's just very hard to talk about right now. But he's very, very private. And so he wanted to keep it that way. And I'm sure that he and Sean and he and Jerry and had conversations about all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't doubt he said that to Sean at all.
Interesting. If I may ask, did Lane ever talk to you about Demery? Because I know that her passing obviously had a very big,
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
sure
Interesting.
did.
Yeah. Uh,
He loved that woman like crazy.
yeah. I would assume, and from what I've read, this is what's been said that her death basically kind of like really took a huge toll on him until the end, essentially. Like he never got over it, basically.
Correct. I would say that's absolutely accurate.
Hmm. Interesting. Wow. Is there any one positive memory of Lane that you remember that just kind of makes you smile when you think about
Every single one.
it?
Just he was an amazing human, and I loved him. And we had some really great times together. We had some hard times together. And but you know, in the end, it was all about the creativity and the music for me. Um, he was like a brother to me, and there wouldn't be anything in the world I wouldn't have done for him. So I guess that's the anecdote right there.
Yeah.
That he was just one of the most genuine people you could have ever met in your life.